Hello and welcome everybody, and thanks for joining me again. My name is Wilky, and as I mentioned in the announcement video, I am actually playing Vindictus. So I thought I'm gonna start off with the PvE dungeon, which actually makes sense according to my level. I did actually do this dungeon before. It's, at least according to the developers, it's for level 28 or 27. I'm level 28. So this shouldn't be too much trouble. I'm gonna stick to my bow. I have a crossgun, which is effectively like a machine gun paired with a crossgun, or like a crossbow, but I really don't like it for now, so I'm gonna stick to the bow. In case you're wondering if I sometimes use the name Kai, in Vindictus, classes are not named after like their purpose, so it's not like warrior, ranger, but rather they have names. I'm not really sure why the devs did it that way, but it's not really a big deal. But for example, this character is called Kai, so whenever you hear me referring or using that name, that refers to the archer. Just to clarify some things, I'm pretty sure not everybody plays Vindictus, not everybody is familiar with it, even though it's a pretty old game. But I'm pretty sure not everybody's familiar with it. So the cool part about the game is it has a very fluid combat system. It feels very responsive, at least some classes do, and it looks pretty good actually for a game which is pretty much 5 years old, like not counting how long it was actually developed. It looks actually pretty good, thanks to the source engine which it is made in. The downside is the performance of the game is kind of very poor, like in certain occasions or when doing raids or something. There can be a lot of hiccups in terms of frame rate and stuff, so that might be an issue. It's not really an issue if I play alone. I've never really had any trouble even with my old PC, so it's not entirely the fault of the engine. It's just there's also the involvement of lag if somebody hosts. The game pretty much works like C9 PvP. It's peer-to-peer, at least the small ones. So if anybody is hosting a raid with like 8 people or 7 people, he actually needs a more or less decent upload so people will not start lagging all over the place, which you can imagine if you fight a big boss that hurts quite a bit might actually be a problem. So that's something you do not want. But usually I host myself, so I don't really have these issues. But it's not all fun and games, obviously. Every game has some issues, and peer-to-peer is never a good design, if you ask me, because there's still a huge amount of bad infrastructure around the world, so not everybody has good internet, and these people pretty much cannot host, so yeah. Anyway, something about the class. It sort of doesn't feel like Vindictus in general, because pretty much every other class except for the caster is more of a melee class, and this one obviously breaks out of that. He can do some melee damage. He has this really awesome looking tornado kick, and this kick also, but generally he's more of a ranged guy. And what's funny about this class, or actually fun, is you can switch between a short bow and a long bow. I'm gonna switch to it and knock some arrows into the boss. I'm just gonna finish the ads. And you have some very cool skills you can use. Like for example, I have this arrow rain and I just get hit. And I have a very cool dodge mechanic on this character. And some ricochet shots, pretty much a shot that's just gonna bounce like that. But it's not the fast-paced class, it's not the most funkiest class, and not the top DPS class, but it's a pretty good utility class. Like, he has certain skills and things that allow him to stun the boss very easily. Obviously deal damage from far away, so he's not really taking the risk of being hit. I mean, it still does happen, especially if you're alone, because obviously the boss is just going to follow me. But I'm gonna see if I can charge up probably the most damaging skill this character has. It's called Magnum Shot. It's a really cool looking skill, but it's not really useful, so I'm not gonna try around too much. This dungeon is actually very, very quick. So I'm just gonna keep spraying this down. As you can see, this is the downside of the game is it's very repetitive in that way. It's sort of like an action game on a console, or like pretty much any action game. You have your basic movements like light attack, strong attack, and pretty much all characters work this way. So let's see. Let's dodge here. This should be killed. No. Let's just kick him because it looks cool. So pretty much not every character is like that, especially this one isn't. But like I said, it's a pretty good utility class. There's a mechanic in the game, which is called Break Off, which effectively is what it is called like. So you are able to break off parts of a boss or of an enemy. And to do so, you usually have to hit the boss in a very specific location with either a strong attack or a spear, which is like a usable item, or what else is there, like a big item. Like you can pick up these chunks of ice and you can actually poke with it, smash, or even throw them like this. And you can actually break off parts of certain bosses. Not every boss has that mechanic, but quite a few actually have, and that allows you to get extra drops or extra items off a boss, which is in some occasions actually very good, because that way you can earn more money because you get more loot. And sometimes it's actually really, really pricey, the thing you can break off. So it's a really cool mechanic, and that's the fact pretty much I like the class, because it's more of a utility class. It's not as gear dependent as others. And there's some elitist crap going on in the game that people host raids only for people that have a certain amount of gear, which is kinda understandable, but it divides the community into two parts, like the one that have gear and the ones that don't. And that obviously makes it harder for the people who don't have the gear to actually get some money. But if you get some friends in a guild, that's not really a big deal. So I actually wanted to switch to the crossgun to show you the crossgun gameplay, but I will probably just do it later on, once I pick up some more skills and maybe fight a boss. That might be entertaining. Because right now, the game is very easy. Pretty much all the game has to offer are raids, because PvE itself is very simple. There's a couple bosses that are kind of hard, but generally there's nothing in the dungeon that can really harm you, even as a melee. Most mobs can be stunned or staggered, so it's not really a problem. And as you can see, most of these die fairly easily. Even though I don't have any enchanted gear, I don't have any strong equip, I don't have anything that boosts my attack or something. So, is there something alive? No. I do not have anything that boosts my character's damage or stats really much. So this is pretty much how difficult the game is, in most cases. Not all, like I said, there's exceptions. In some occasions, dungeons are very hard alone, especially if you don't know the game. But since I played the game for a good amount of hours, this is really not too hard for me. Although I'm not an expert at this class, it's very easy because I can stay on range. I can just shoot arrows at enemies, which makes it very easy. I have to be fair, it's kind of boring, but at the same time, like I said, this is more of a utility character. I'm trying to get some foot again in the game because I do not have gear. I do not really have any money. Oops, I didn't want to drink a potion. I do not have any money to equip my main character, so this is pretty much my attempt to get back into the game. Like, get some gear, get this character going, so I can go on some raids, earn some money, and equip my main character, which I showed in the first Vindictus video I made. That's where I played it. But yeah, at some point I will switch to that character, maybe even play more. It really depends. I don't plan on playing extensively, but probably like 1 to 2 hours a day or something, do some raids, level a bit, maybe play with some friends, or simply farm. But pretty much all, like I said, all this game has to offer is the daily raids or the weekly ones. And that's pretty much the goal for now, to actually get this character going. Participate in the raids. I discovered a title. That's another cool mechanic. You get titles for killing enemies a certain way, like killing them with kicks, which this character has it a lot easier because this move counts as a kick and it deals a lot more damage than the basic kick. And it looks 10 times more awesome, so... Anyway, we're at the stage boss of this dungeon. This is the first dungeon of the new map, like a new section. And usually the first boss of a new section is very easy, and that's also the case here. There's also these ads. They spawn in most boss fights, but they are really not a big deal. It's really simple. As you can see, he has a lot less HP than the other guy, because the other guy was the sort of final boss. But I'm gonna just use the charge attack, because it's less annoying that way. Kick to finish. And these cool screenshots at the very end are kind of cool, so... There's some gimmicks in the game, but I like them. I think they make the game a lot more enjoyable. And I also showed the transformation thingy in my first video, which is something not available, because you have to hit level 40 before you can transform. But I will also go for that on this character, although I might choose a different path. And I leveled up, got some loot. So... yeah, that's pretty much all. I want to cut the video here. Like I said, I'm not going to drag out the videos too long. I might do some PvE video here and there, because pretty much that's what the game has to offer, but these dungeons, as you can see, there's a lot of dungeons I have to do, and I have to level up first, or unlock them. But I will do that at some point, so yeah, let me know what you guys think, if you want to see something specific. Right now, I cannot offer you too much in-depth content about the game, because I'm not able to go to the late game content, end game content yet. But once I reach the stage of doing so, I will definitely cover those. Anyways, thank you everybody for joining me into another video of Vindictus, and as always, see ya.